The rear calipers had seen better days and decided to give them a full overhaul. Firstly, remove the piston section. This is done by removing the pins from the shims and sliding or tapping them out, unscrewing the brake hose and unclipping the handbrake cable. The squeal shims had bent and was rubbing against the disc. With the piston sections off, I boxed them off and sent them away to be refurbished. I then unbolted the pad holders to clean, lightly file and sand for a smoother surface. The shims were also wet sanded and polished to reduce friction once reinstalled. The rubbing surface of the shims and the caliper were masked and then sprayed with a gold high temperature caliper paint for a cleaner and more cohesive look. These were left to dry for at least an hour before baking them in the oven. I don't recall the exact temperatures and time, but it was around 40 degrees for 30 minutes, then 80 degrees for another 30 minutes. They were then left overnight. I would also be replacing the discs, so I took out the 2 screws to remove them. With the discs removed, I decided to clean the suspension, and so removed the hub for easier access. The suspension and drive shafts were cleaned with a wire brush, sandpaper, before painting with some hammerite for added protection. I didn't use special metal primer, just to see how this lasts. The hubs were also cleaned before refitting with the new discs. Although not intentional, these came with a green protective coating and looked quite cool. The caliper pad holders were bolted back on and already it was a great improvement. When the piston sections returned, the finish was nothing short of awful. I'm not entirely sure if they were my original parts and looked like there was a rough casting. I clamped and filed, concentrating on the visible face before masking the piston body and spraying with the same caliper paint. These were also baked along with the headlamp motors, but due to the rubber nylon parts, kept the temperature low at 40 degrees. I'm sure you'll agree that although the function is the same, visually the difference is night and day. To refit, you first screw in the piston using the slot. Clip in the squeal shims, place in the pads, then slot over the piston section. You then slide in the shims and clip in their retaining pins. I also added a small amount of grease so they could slide with minimal friction to ensure that the pads were not held on. One of the headlamp motors stopped working just as I started the renovation work. This is a fairly common issue where the internal bearings and cods disintegrate. Rebuild kits are available containing all the parts required, including grease. It's not a terribly difficult job, although the refitting is a little fiddly, as the springs on the electric brushes push them out and obscure inserting the splines back together. I found using 2 bent paper clips to push against the brushes while you push the splines back together was really the way to go. After assembly, these were sprayed with satin black and baked as shown earlier. Hopefully these will last another 30 years. With the car stripped, I could see the left side fuel tank clamp board had some rot. Using the removed balls as a template, I marked and cut a replacement from 9mm sheet exterior ply. I also painted it with some 10-year exterior fence paint I had left over from some work in the garden, transferred the retaining clips and refitted. Next little job was the front side lights and indicators. The originals had corrosion on the contacts and reflectors. Period original parts are hard to come by, however I did manage to source suitable replacements at a very reasonable price. Face on they are the same size with identical lenses, but only half the depth. I clear coated the reflectors to improve corrosion resistance. Due to the depth difference, I needed to adjust the mounting method. This was not a bad thing anyway, as the originals require the removal of the front bumper to access the rear nuts. I decided to mount a longer bolt from the rear and double lock nut it in place. Additional nuts and washers were then used to space out the lamp case to bring the lens face to the correct position. This also created a void for some wire plugs. Now the lamp can be removed without the arduous task of releasing the bumper. The rear light lenses were lightly wet sanded with 2000 and polished with compound. Alternatively, these could have been clear coated. The wheels, lights, number plates and driver's seat were fitted and the car was ready to bring home, which will be a topic of another video.